Do you want to know one of the biggest deal killers for equity protection novations when you are a real estate investor and you have all your paperwork done and you list the home and you start getting inquiries and then the deal just doesn't get moved? One of the biggest deal killers is buyer agent skepticism, or they just try to control the deal because you haven't positioned yourself as a true equity protection manager or attorney in fact. So in this video, I'm going to share with you completely for free how we're able to nip that in the bud, be proactive, and essentially educate buyers agents that have never been through this transaction, and so that you can install this in your business. And when the buyer agent inquiries come in, they're not skeptical, they understand what you're doing. And the key is being proactive with it and embed this from the start of the interaction. So let me go ahead and share my screen right here. So what you see here is what we call a buyer agent packet. And in this buyer agent packet, you tell the buyer agent everything they must know about the transaction, everything you know about the property, all the disclosures. And this may be a moot point if you are using a listing agent. They take care of that. But if you are listing yourself with a flat fee service, let's say brokerless or cheap MLS, you will need to go ahead and provide this type of information ahead of time. For example, the first thing that they're going to ask you is, how much are you paying for buyer agent compensation? In most of our markets, it's 3%. I'm a big fan of just paying whatever the market rate is, because I don't want to disincentivize them from actually showing the home. I don't care about all these rules or NAR, blah, 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 BS, when in fact people have mouths to feed. If they have the option to show another house and get paid what they believe is a fair rate, which is market rate, then they'll do that, right? So first question that we address is, thank you for your interest. Here's a buyer agent compensation. Then we go ahead and tell them how they can access the home, okay? We tell them it's vacant. And this is after they register, which I should have mentioned before. I'm going to show you kind of the workflows here in a minute, and you'll be able to access them for free below this video. So if they, for example, have questions around who you are and how to show, it should all be answered here, right? You tell them, hey, I'm the equity protection manager. I'm the attorney in fact for this transaction. Do not contact the owners directly. If it's vacant, you'll let them know, hey, it's vacant on a lockbox. And you want to at least have a conversation with them, and you want to get them to opt in. You want to get their name, their email, their phone, and their public agent ID. If they're not agents, they could be a wholesaler, which we know there's a lot of snakes out there. There could be a direct buyer that may try to interfere, and we just don't want any drama. We want to understand who's inquiring in. And because you're not available 24/7, you use AI and systems to actually get that done. And I'm going to share with you these snapshots and resources down below in the description. So with that said, you want to explain to them, hey, I'm the attorney in fact. Here's the attorney in fact document. It'll show the owner of record has signed, and better yet, if you have it notarized, that's even better. So they understand that, this is legit. The other piece is you want to let them know or provide them all the disclosures. So like seller disclosure, property condition disclosure, lead-based paying disclosure. If, for example, they're going to need a lease back, a lot of our sellers don't have the money to move out. So you want to provide them essentially a pre-filled out, pre-signed seller lease back. You want to have that conversation with your seller, by the way, sooner rather than later, so they understand that. And what are the offer instructions, right? So like you're going to tell them, hey, you want to write it up this way. This is the name. You want to provide proof of funds if you have like a timeline or a deadline, and the title company that you're going to be transacting with. You want to make sure that you ask your escrow officer, what is their Department of Insurance certificate, so you can attach it. So you're going to have a couple things attached to this template as soon as a buyer agent checks in and opts in. You're going to get their name, their email, their phone, their public ID, and you're going to provide them all the disclosures, all the addendums that you can provide them. And if you've done an inspection or even a Matterport, which we do a lot of times for occupied properties, so that their buyers can disqualify themselves in terms of the home, then even better, because we don't want to be overwhelming our sellers with essentially just a bunch of tire kickers in the transaction. So how do we get all this done, automatically? So the first step is, once they call in your system, and we use GoHighLevel for our system, once you have them call in, you have them opt in, okay? You have them opt in, provide the information. And then what's really important here is you're going to treat buyer's agents differently than direct buyers or wholesalers. You'll notice here that if I click real estate buyer agent, it will ask for the realtor agent public ID. Now, sometimes people are skeptical, including buyer's agents. They're like, what the heck's this? I typically use showing time, or I use this other thing. Why I'm having to fill out all these forms? It may take a phone call to kind of just explain and gather the information. Now, there's always going to be some bad actors, people that are just difficult to deal with, but that's the first step. You ask them to register so that you can get them opted in, and you can allow the system to follow up with them, right? So based on that, it's going to create the opportunity, it's going to tag them. And what you're doing with tagging is you're able to build your buyer's agent list as inquiries come in. So whenever we have a wholesale deal or an as-is deal or an upcoming equity protection novation on a market that we've done deals already in, we already have a list of buyer's agents that are active. You got to keep in mind that with buyer's agents, the 80-20 rule applies. Only 20% really do about 80 to 100% of the transactions. I mean, there's a lot of buyer's agents that just do like one deal a year. So as they opt in, you want to tag them as what they are, a buyer agent, and the county that they're working in, and kind of, what their active areas are, right? And so with that said, you're going to route them through here, and you're going to identify them as such, and you'll be able to send them the buyer agent packet. It's going to be a little bit different if it's vacant versus if it's occupied in terms of the verbiage, because if it is vacant, obviously it's easier. You have a lockbox that you can use. If it's occupied, it has to be scheduled with the owner, or in many cases with a tenant. So do not let your deals die because you don't have a proper process with buyer's agents. This may be a moot point if you essentially have a listing agent listing your novations, which is totally cool. But in the case that you're using a flat fee listing service where you or your office are managing all these inquiries, you want to have an established process where the person, essentially calls in, gets a text message with the link for them to register. Then you're building your buyer's agent list, or even your direct buyers, wholesaler, type of list there for that county. And then essentially providing them all the information so communication is streamlined and in writing. If, for example, they're difficult to deal with, they don't want to fill out a form, they're like, what the F is this? You know what I mean? Then they might not be a good person to deal with, because people are just people. Many times they're just difficult. But I'd say that probably with this system, we churn out the bad actors ahead of time. And a lot of times you just got to think, right, that these buyers agents, they are looking after the best interest of their buyers. So they don't want to be scammed, right? They just don't want to be scammed. And this is a little bit outside of their normal way of showing. So if you are able to provide as much information as possible, overcome the objections, let them know that yes, there is a buyer agent compensation plan. Yes, we're working with a legitimate title company. Yes, here's all the disclosures and addendums and how to write up your offer. At the end of the day, what they want to do is show, make the offers, get paid. And if you can simplify that process for them, you'll do great. I'd love to know your questions or your comments in the comment section below. Let me know, and check out the resources in the description here. We'll see you guys on the next video.